Welcome back to Kickin' in here with Mitch. Hey, we appreciate you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, hit that like, hit the subscribe, hit the comment, and don't forget to hit the notification so you always know when we air a new episode. Hey, for all my fans, everybody tuning in, we really appreciate you. Thanks so much for giving us that support. We here at Kickin' in with Mitch really appreciate it, and we want to thank you so much. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Welcome to Kickin' It with Mitch. So on today's episode, we're still staying in the horror movie theme. We're gonna go with the Mount Rushmore of horror. Wait a minute, did I hear something? I think that's the phone ringing. Hold on. Studio, can you patch me in?
Mitch, man, thanks for having me back on the channel.
Oh, what's up, E? What's going on? All right, well, come on in. If you got something you want to say, bring it on in. We appreciate that. Well, guys, there you have it. Looks like E impromptu stopped his vacation to come holler at us at Kickin' Here with Mitch. We want to thank him again for being a special guest. All right, now. Well, the Mount Rushmore of horror, in my opinion, and it doesn't have to go in any particular way, but we'll just name them in this way. For my version of the Mount Rushmore of horror, it's going to be pretty interesting. Of course, you know Jason's on the list. Hey, you can't have Jason and not have Michael Myers. And if you have Jason, Michael Myers, then of course, you know, we gotta have Freddy. Now you're wondering, who's gonna round off the Mount Rushmore on this list for us? Before I give you that number 4 spot, here's a few honorable mentions that we would like to acknowledge. Dracula. Wouldn't have a lot of the Dracula, zombie movies, or not zombie, vampire movies without Dracula. The Mummy, classic. It's very scary, walk around a dead man wrapped around in tissue paper, if you will, or, mummy wrappings and will kill you and then mummify you. Frankenstein, just brute force. Where do you think Michael Myers and Jason got it from, Wolfman, you definitely don't want to get bit, ripped apart, torn to shreds. Ghostface, whenever you get that phone call and he asks you what that favorite scary movie is. What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. Ash, chainsaw in one hand, boomstick in the other. Trouble coming real soon. And let's not forget about the Book of the Dead. Pinhead? You don't want to play with that little gold box too long. You mess around and push the wrong keys, your walls start transforming, and you might not come back and put together the way you were before. Candyman? Say his name 3 times, and it's a wrap. You might as well just call it a day, because you ain't coming back. And how could I forget about this guy? Leatherface, the infamous chainsaw, the killer, Texas chainsaw. Don't want to be a part of that massacre. Well, those are my honorable mentions. And in just a second, we're going to let E come in and let you know how he feels about it. But rounding off my number 4 on the list, we're going with the Heart of Damballa, the New Jersey Strangler, Yeah. Charles Lee Ray. Chucky himself. I really feel like he earned that number 4 spot because he has been with us and still relevant to us for a very long time. A killer doll, and it just rained havoc on the whole world. So you heard it from me as far as Mount Rushmore, but now I am curious to see what my main man Eric's gonna say. He lay it on him, man.
So it looks like our Mount Rushmore is going to be fairly similar. Okay, so obviously we have the big titans of having Freddy, Jason, and Michael on there. It's hard to not go with those guys, and we can break it down into many times, right? Like Freddy, he's the most, I feel like, iconic as like an actor playing a part in a horror movie, next to probably Chucky being second, but the difference is Chucky's voice, and Robert Englund's actually portraying him, going through the makeup, everything like that. So I would definitely, Freddy has to be in there. I mean, look, that series is in complete development hell if he's not a part of it. Nobody will. I don't think anybody will accept anything but Robert, and he won't do any more. So you look at that aspect, and they tried to do a remake, it didn't pan out, and he's got he's got it down, right? He's only got I think 7 or 8 films, but he's iconic, right? And he's got some classic ones. And what I love about Nightmare on Elm Street is it has some sequels that are very underrated as well, in terms of like New Nightmare, I think, changed the game, and I think paved the way for Scream in a lot of ways. And then you have Dream Warriors, which I think is the best film that they've done in the franchise for Nightmare on Elm Street. And obviously the first film, it has its classic to it as well, but 3 is always going to be in my heart the best one. So you have, obviously Freddy's got to be in there. There's no question. Robert Englund, there's nobody, I don't think, that's ever going to touch that character. Okay. And then we have Michael and Jason. Okay, Michael and Jason are both generally stuntmen, but what they can do. So Jason, is arguably one of the most unstoppable people that's ever been as a horror villain in a movie. Not to mention, he's always had the body count. His body counts are always 20 plus each movie. He definitely doesn't shy away from the kills, and that's a big part of it. And then you also got to remember, man, 80s was the decade of horror. I know horror is still very much alive and around, but that's, I feel like, when it was its pinnacle in many forms, at least, when it's coming to North American horror films, right? And so, I think he's had more sequels in the 80s for a film franchise than any other person. I think it was only 1983 and 87 where he didn't have films. Every other year he had a film. So obviously they were good money machines for them, albeit low budget, but definitely brought in money until the end of the 80s. So Jason's got to be on there. I mean, he's very iconic. He's one of the best ever, right? So then we've got Michael. Okay, so Michael could be considered maybe the most iconic of the 3 in different ways. I think in terms of just as your overall killer. First film, I don't think anybody has a stronger first film than Halloween does in terms of the horror genre, at least when it comes to the slasher genre, which is where a lot of the villains are and where they get a lot of films. There's a lot of horror villains, of course, but you can't keep these guys down. And Michael's undoubtedly up there. I mean, he's been through, him and Jason have been through very weird times with the writing. and that. But that comes with different iterations, trying to do different things. But Michael is amazing, and is the mystique of Michael, if you, depending on the timeline you look at, is what I think is interesting to Michael. It's just he's just a blank killer. He's just evil, and he's just evil incarnate. And I think that's something that sometimes when you try to do too many things to explain things, sometimes you make things a little less interesting, or you box yourself into a corner. But Michael has resurged himself, quite a few times through different timelines. It'll be interesting to see where they go with him further. I know there's a TV series coming out in the next year or two, and I'm sure there'll be more movies down the line. But it will be interesting with him, because it's going to be hard to see where they go with it, because they've exhausted a lot of avenues with him already. But I think he's still, him or Freddy, probably going to be the most iconic of all time. So the fourth spot. So this is where Mitch, me and you differ. The fourth spot is definitely wasn't easy to pick, because you could pick through a lot of people. You could go with Leatherface, one of the original slashers. You could go with Chucky. You picked Chucky, which was a great pick. Chucky has transcended a lot of adversity over different years, and also only the 2019 remake, that's not a part of that series that Don Mancini's done. Everything else is one timeline. Nothing's been retconned. Everything has been continuous. It's not like Halloween that has 4 different timelines, which can be very confusing for a new a novice watcher going, what the hell is going on? If they're going from film to film, it's like, oh, well, that doesn't come from these films, right? So anyways, there's a lot of people you could have picked here for this one, and it wasn't an easy decision, but I would have to go with a person that's not a specific slasher, but is more of a persona, and I think you'll know who I'm talking about. It's Ghostface. So this guy has been going since the 90s, still going strong. There's now going to be a 7th film coming out. Scream changed the game, let's be honest. Horror was in a very tough time in the 90s, in my opinion. And there was not a lot of things to see that were new and exciting. The genre kind of got a little exhausted, I think, from the 80s. Somewhat. And so with the 90s coming in, I think with New Nightmare was a real big trigger for Wes with bringing into the horror into the real world. And they did a sensational job with that, where, it was talking about how movies work and how this would play to real life and the rules and all that, right? So the killer, even though there's multiple killers, I feel like that is a fun series that doesn't get old. It only has 6 films so far in a TV series. There'll be a 7th film, and it's nice to see like different characters play the killers differently. So it's always fun to try to figure out the mystery of who the killer is, right? With Michael, Jason, and Freddy, you never get to figure that out. You know who they are. It's basically like, okay, how are they going to kill, who's going to die, and how are they going to do it, and when are they going to die, and what spin are they going to put in this film on this big franchise slasher? That's basically the questions for that. You don't have that mystery the same way as you do with Scream, when you're always trying to figure things out. And you can figure a lot of things out if you really dissect it easily. I figured out most of the killers for those films when I was watching them, but still all in fun, right? So there's a lot of people you could have put here, right, for the Mount Rushmore, but I feel like this is the strongest Mount Rushmore we could put. Honorable mention, I'm gonna go with Mitch's pick to Chucky, because Chucky's definitely overcome a lot of obstacles, and Brad Dourif is, he's sensational in that role, and he's still doing it today via the voice acting, which is incredible. And that's had a successful TV series as well. So, not to mention about 7 films. So, all these guys, there's no slouches here. Everybody in this era is good. So that's who I'm going with my Mount Rushmore. And Mitch, thanks again for having me on the channel, man. And I'll see you next time.
Wow, E, that's pretty interesting that you finished it off with Ghostface. All right, I see you had your reasons. And hey, them honorable mentions was pretty dope too. Well, there you have it. You have 2 versions. You might not agree with either 2. That's why they have a comments box down there that you just chime in and you say how you feel. Let us know what you think about our Mount Rushmore. Maybe you agree with me. Maybe you agree with her. Maybe you have your own. But drop a comment. We are curious to see who your Mount Rushmore of horror is. Hey, thanks for kicking in here with Mitch. Appreciate you. And once again, before I go, hey, E, thanks for taking time to stop in your vacation to give us a holler. Now you get on back to doing what you do best, all right? Enjoying yourself. We'll see you on a future episode of Kickin' In Here with Mitch. Peace.
Thanks for kicking it with Mitch.